The most important stretch in the hand that I always show my own students is this one, between the index finger and the thumb. It's not really about pain or proving anything. It's really just about stretching and feeling it. This kind of exercise, which will amaze your friends, stun your enemies, and delight your grandmother. I'd like to start this series of exercises with an examination of something that pianists actually rarely think about, and that is, how do you keep your fingers and hands and wrists loose away from the piano? It's something I think about whenever I'm backstage about to play a piano concerto and somebody decides to step up to the podium in front of the audience and give a long donors or presenters talk, and now you're getting colder and colder and colder, and perhaps even more nervous and so forth. And what do? You fidget and you cough and you look at your watch and things like this. Well, there are, of course, things that you can do to keep your hands flexible. And in the seventh volume, in the final volume of the series, Alberto Honas has a series of exercises away from the piano for the fingers, wrists, and arms, complete with photographs of his own fingers and hands showing you how to do these things. Now, there are some basic stretches between the webbing of the fingers, sort of like this, using the fingers to stretch gently. Always, always gently. Never do this very, very sharply. The most important stretch in the hand that I always show my own students is this one, between the index finger and the thumb. In this way, you can actually lengthen your stretch. This I found out myself as an undergraduate at Juilliard when I was struggling to play the Liszt B minor piano sonata. I wanted to play some of the large chords without rolling them. And I found that by gently stretching that muscle, I could actually extend my reach from the octave to the ninth, to the 10th, and with maximum stretch actually to the 11th. And on very, very rare occasions, I actually do use this technique. Now, it is fair to say that we're not all gifted with the same size hand, with the same length finger. If you see photographs of Chopin's hand or Rachmaninoff's hand, you'll see this. And I myself once had the pleasure of witnessing Van Cliburn, who was a personal friend, walk by a piano. He commented, "Gee, that looks like a nice piano," and then dropped his right hand onto the instrument and played this without any break whatsoever. And I put my tongue back in my mouth after staring at that, and I realized that God is not fair. However, we all have to deal with what it is that we have. And there are advantages, of course, to having a smaller hand as well. This I often tell my own students who are very concerned about whether they have the reach for this chord or that chord. Some of the exercises that Honas shows us in his photographs involve strengthening against resistance. That is, he shows you holding the fingers down like this and then pressing against them as you lift. This is probably a good technique for strengthening from the knuckle ridge a little bit. This is not something I've really done a lot because I tend to feel more that flexibility and looseness is more important than strength. However, there are numerous photos which are really, really useful to look at. One of the things that I like here very much is the idea of pressing the thumb against the various fingers so that you get a good kind of exercise for the thumb here itself. And I've enjoyed using these things sometimes, as I mentioned, before going on stage so that, when I walk on stage, I don't feel like, oh, gee, now I have to play and I have to suddenly do this. This is something you can do before you start playing. And now it's probably morning and you're sitting at the piano and you're thinking, gee, I have to exercise and I wonder what it is that I'm going to do. This is kind of the same as when I get up and I think about, will I do a little bit of a jog today? Do I have a friend to play tennis with? Will I go down to the gym, et cetera, et cetera? Daily maintenance is something that I think is really, really important. And that applies to our own bodies as well as our fingers, hands, and the tools that we use to play the piano. As I go through the demonstrations of the exercises and examples from the Honas series, I will be using numbers that correspond to the numbers that Honas himself puts in his volumes. You'll be able to find those yourself in referencing the Tonebase workbook where they're listed with those same numbers. So the very opening of Volume 1 of Alberto Honas's Master School involves the idea of extension and flexibility. And we'll look at some of those opening exercises right now. The very first exercise has nothing to do with the thumbs. It's all about the upper fingers. And you'll see that he begins in the key of C major, starting with the 5th finger and extending downward. And one of the principal things to do when doing these kind of exercises is to think about comfort. If anything hurts, stop doing it. If anything stretches too much, stop doing it. Otherwise, be very mindful at all times. Really feel what it is your hand is doing. I tend to roll my hands a little bit up and down when I'm doing these, just to sort of see, okay, can I comfortably do that? Honas then suggests going by inversions. And in the tradition of all pedagogic treatises from the 19th and 20th centuries, we're now going to modulate throughout all 12 keys. You'll notice that every key has its own color, its own feel. In this particular case, I have to actually put my 3rd finger under to accomplish this voicing. Everyone's hand will have different results. In general, D flat is much harder. So, to reiterate, if something hurts, don't do it. If you can gently stretch it and then relax the muscles a little bit, then it's worth doing. You go through all of those, you'll feel definitely much more flexible. The second exercise in Honas's first volume is one that I consider one of the most essential in the entire series. This is an exercise exactly for stretching and extension of the index finger and the thumb, which I mentioned earlier. Now, in doing this exercise, I want to introduce the concept of symmetrical motion, by which I mean using not the middle C, but the middle D as the center of our piano. Now, for intellectual purposes, I can point out that A flat also works, but I like white keys better than black keys, so let's go with D. From this center of D, you'll see that the pattern of all the black notes and the white notes are exactly the same. If I go outward or if I come inward, the pattern will feel exactly the same in both hands, and that is the purpose of using this technique, so that both my hands get an equal workout. Starting on the E and the C, which is a symmetrical chord, I'm going to stretch to the octave with the 3rd finger. Silently substitute the 2nd finger as easily and naturally as I can. You'll see that in my own hands, you'll see that I'm actually touching these consecutive notes with my thumb. That's okay. As long as they don't sound, it's perfectly fine. Now, moving chromatically, I'm stretching 1, 3, and then 1, 2, and feeling the stretch between the thumb and the index finger. Next pattern, let's try minor ninths with 1, 4, substituting to 1, 3. And remember, in between each new stretch, to try to relax the arms, relax the hands, relax the wrists. Finally, 1, 5, substituting to 1, 4. When you're done, you've had a very, very good stretch, and the fingers will feel very, very limber.
Hey everyone, Robert here. If you like what you've been seeing so far, then you're absolutely going to want to check out Sara Buechner's entire School of Virtuosity course over on Tonebase Premium. I have to say that I have been using this course myself in the past few months to help me really get a little bit more specific about what I'm doing in the practice room. Having played the piano for the better part of almost 3 decades now, I feel like sometimes my practicing can get a little bit abstract, and Sara's course has helped me to identify some specific problems in my technique and given me specific exercises for how to deal with them. It's really been a game changer for my piano playing, and you can actually get access to part of this course for free by checking the link in the description below. Along with that, you'll receive a downloadable PDF with some exercises from the School of Virtuosity. If you've ever wondered how to channel that old school virtuoso playing into your own pianism, then this is really the starting point that you need. Check the link in the description below to get started with the free lesson and the free downloadable PDF. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for more fantastic content right here on YouTube.
Now let's have a look at some exercises for extension and flexibility by master pianists of the early 20th century, by some of the real titans. It's really amazing to look at these things and realize that the great pianists themselves used these exercises to warm up, probably before their morning practice, but also before important concerts as well. I'd like to start with one that's actually not included in the Honas collection, but one that I learned from a pupil of Ferruccio Busoni as his daily warm-up technique. And that's why I want to start with it. It's a very basic exercise, a rather fundamental one, but one which has had a powerful effect for me and for many of my own students. It begins with the hand position based upon the symmetrical pattern we talked about earlier. Foundation point of C and E. And I'm going to start by simply holding the thumbs and playing half steps, chromatic scales in opposite directions. The two hands will do the same exact thing. Now I'm going to extend to a whole tone scale, whole steps. And you can probably guess what comes next. Minor thirds. And now major thirds, and I won't be able to hold the thumb down anymore. And now perfect fourths. And now executed backwards so that the hand naturally shrinks back to a smaller position. The symmetrical pattern enables us to find 12 different positions in which to do this exercise. So I can practice this as much as I really feel, or I want to feel, or that I need per day. And so on and so forth. I really love this exercise, and I had the great honor, I guess I would call it, to have several students tell me that they felt that this exercise alone had transformed their piano playing. That's high praise.